What is the purpose of it? Hmm? They have improvised the way we code. The advantage of that is that with less code, we can achieve more. To simply, for your better understanding, what is the why they have created what is the latest version of Android? 14 is the latest version. 13 is already there. Why they have created 14? Just new features, improvised. Exactly the same thing. Dennis Ritchie has created version 1 of programming called procedural oriented programming. This procedural oriented programming includes features like variables, data types, control statements, loops, functions, like this. And there are two people called Broadcox and Tom Love. They have taken that procedural oriented programming and improvised it by adding few extra features. We can call it as like a version 2 of programming. We call it as object oriented programming. This object oriented programming has same concepts like variables, data, control steps, loops, functions. Loops are all there. Variables, data, control statements, loops, functions, all are there. In object oriented programming is also all are there. But few extra features. What are those few extra features? Classes, inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, abstraction, composition, like this. We have worked on all these things. Now we are going to work on this. That's what actually it is, right? And what React has done, they have taken this object-oriented programming JavaScript. They have taken this object-oriented programming JavaScript, and they have added their own features. That is nothing but JSXML. That is nothing but components. That is nothing but hooks. I think hooks I haven't covered yet. I think one hook we have covered. Useref, Useref is one of the hooks. There are so many hooks are there. Useref is one of them. Understanding now we are going to learn these concepts. We are going to learn these concepts. Now before we proceed, first we start with these classes. First we start with the classes. Let me create a project. So I will create I'll create a new project. I'm naming it as OOPS. It means object-oriented programming concepts. Why I have already created few projects earlier? Because that takes some time, around 10 minutes time it takes. So I have already created and I'm just using it. So it saves some time. So I'm coming to package.json. Because package.json maintains the name of the details of the project, including name. So I wanted to change the name to oops, here I want to change the name. Even if you don't change the name there also it works. Anyway, we are changing, so I'm giving this. Let's say npm start working. Let us start working. First of all, we'll be discussing about classes concept. You know, classes concept is there. That is part of basically class concept is there. That is part of object-oriented programming. And React has taken this class concept and improvised it according to their requirement, customized it according to their requirement, and they called it as a class component. What? Class component. Okay. So classes is the concept of object-oriented programming, right? And React has taken that class concept and improvised it as according to the requirements, and they named it as class component. And they have further improvised it. And they named it as a functional component. What? Functional. Right now, the component we are creating is actually functional component. We are creating that RFCE, React Functional Component. We already worked on this. Understanding? So it's like this. We know functional component, how to create and how to use, but you don't know his parent called class component, his parent called class. You don't know these two yet. Now what are we going to learn? We are going to learn about this. So this functional component is like junior NTR, but junior NTR is evolved from NTR only, not senior NTR. Yes, that we are going to learn about. Got a point? Now, can you tell me, in functional components, like the components, once you create the component, that component can hold functions. We can this functional component can hold functions, and this functional component can hold variables. Yes, can hold variables. And can we create copies of this functional component? You can use it in app.json. How many times you can use that component? Many number of times, n times. So once you create the component, in that component you can create functions, you can create variables, and you can use that component n number of times. And these features are actually coming from class component. These features are coming actually from class component. That means classes. I mean to say, these features are coming from classes. That means a normal class can hold functions. A normal class can hold variables, and it can be used a number of times. Got a point? See, I don't know whether you know it, you heard it or not. When Junior NTR first movie got released, Paul Raman, everyone said he is looking like his grandfather. It's exactly the same thing. Now, functional component can hold functions, variables, and can be used n number of times. In the same way, class also can hold functions, variables, and can be used n number of times. But the syntax changes. This junior NTR is working in color film. This guy is working in black and white films. Technology changes. Got my point? Now we are going to try this. Even class components also can hold functions. Variables, and can be used in number of. We have already worked on this. Now we are working on this. Later we'll be working on this. Got your point? Let us see. Now the project is running. Normally what we do, we create a folder called components and inside that we'll be keeping. Now I don't want it to create components, I wanted to create classes. So I am creating a folder here called classes. And I wanted to create a class and component name should start with capital and continue with capital. Class name also the same. Class name also the same. Now you say NTR means Nandamuri Tarak Ramarao. Actually, those things came from his grandparent. Actually, here also the same thing. Got a point. Component should start with capital, continue with capital. Why this class also should start with capital, continue with capital. Now what I'll do, I'll create a class called then student. This is a simple JavaScript file. This is a simple JavaScript file. If I say RFCE, what happens? If I say RFC, what happens? It becomes component. I don't want component, I want class. So I'm just deleting it. I don't want component, I want class. A class starts with a keyword called class. So I'm saying class. The name of the class name, then is created. Class is created. Now, this is called a class. Class starts with a keyword called class. Then what I will do, inside this a function will be there called constructor. What? Constructor. A class can hold a constructor. What is constructor? Constructor is nothing but a function. Constructor is nothing but a function. It also will be changed a bit here. This is actually constructor. This is a function, right? The specialty of this function is whenever you create a new copy of the class, the constructor will be called. Whenever you create a new copy of the class, the constructor will be called. Like we in functional component, we have a function, right? That function will be called whenever we create a copy in app.js. Exactly. Right. I'll say console log inside and student. Got your point? Okay. Now I have created the class. I have created the constructor in it. Now let us try to use it. Now if you create the component, you will be using in app.js, right? Here also the same thing. Here I'll come here. Now I wanted to use it. I wanted to use it. If I wanted to use it, first of all, how to export it so I can import. Now, for your better understanding, what I am showing you, I am creating one more folder, components. Inside these components, I am creating a component called person. I am creating a component called person. RFCE, I am creating it. A person component has been created. Now, how do I use it? .js, and here I'll remove unwanted stuff. Say This is how we are using it as a component. It's very easy for us to create it because a person is showing. But observe here, whenever I use person, I cannot use person component directly. I have to import it or able to see import person from components folder person. If I import it, then only I can use it. But here in JSXML, everything is automatic. But if I wanted to import it, the component should be exported first. Are able to see here we are exporting. So if you create a component, you have to export it. Then wherever you want, you have to import it. Then you can use. Now I am using Macintosh. Now I wanted to use this. Macintosh is not manufactured in India. Manufactured in China. Designed in California, but manufactured in China. Now China, once they make this Mac, put it, and India has to import it, then use it. For example, if they don't export, can I import? No, I cannot. If I don't import, can I use? Exactly the same thing. If you create a component or if you create a class, must be exported first. Import it wherever you want, then use it. But exactly the same thing is happening. See here, person is a class. We have created it. After creating, we are exporting it. And wherever we want, we are importing it. We are using it. We are doing these things from so many days. But because we are just using RFCE, everything is being done. The time has come to learn a bit detail. Again, now we will be covering these details a bit more depth at later point. We have a concept, we have a topic called Node.js. MER and MER Node.js is there, and then we'll be discussing a bit more detail. Okay. So basically, now we have created a component. After creation, we have exported the component. Then wherever you want, you are importing the component and using the component. Exactly the same thing we have created the class. Are we exporting this class? No. Now I have to export. Say export default of the class at 10 student. Exporting. Only exporting is sufficient. Wherever you want, you have to import it. You have to import it. Now I'll try to use it here directly. You'll be getting it. Let is equal to, I'll say, and student. See, observe here. Just select this, automatically import it. No. Import a student from classes. Exporting is done, importing is done, then using it. Then using it. All these are even components are following because classes are following. Components are actually inherited from classes. Lots of similarities I have observed it. From where are you getting it? These concepts are from classes to components. Now let me run this. If I run this, you can see here. I think it doesn't. Have to, now this is the way we create a copy. To create the copy, we have to give new keyboard. New. This is creating a copy. This is creating a copy of class. This is creating a copy of component. Now I'll refresh it. Now see. Then student constructor. Understanding what I'm saying? Complicated? It's like component only. But all these days we have worked on what do you say? Uh, Visual Studio feature extension like ES7 plus React Redux, React Native snippets. Everything it is doing automatically. Everything it is doing automatically for us. But that won't do for classes. That's why we are doing it. Now I have created a class and I have created a copy of. I have created one component, one copy I have created. And I have created one class, one copy I have created. Now I wanted to create one more component. How do I do that? I'm coming here and I'll say car.js. What I'll do RFCE. Everything is created automatically. Automatically they have exported also. Now if I wanted to use it here, will import it. Okay. Now I have created two components. Each component I have used once. Now I want to create one more class. 10th student, I'll say animal. It's a inter class keyword, the name of the class, inter student. Then constructor. Whatever you write inside this will be executed whenever you create a new copy of it. Say console log inside the student constructor. Now see here. Now I'll come to app.js and say let Ganguly equal to new enter. For your better understanding, I am going inside the component. God.js is a component. This is the function, right? I'll say console log. This behaves like a constructor inside a function. And person inside person function. Whenever I create a copy of a person component or car person component or car component, that function will be called. Whenever I create a copies of classes, that constructor will be called. Error. Sorry. Let's put it now. Inter. The inter is not defined. Inter. Let's go. Inter. Inter student is not defined. Not imported. Automatically comes. refresh it. See, inside 10th student constructor, inside student constructor, inside person function, inside car. Behavior is same, yes sir. Now, can I say this is like a constructor? Whenever you create a copy of a component, that is called. And whatever the variables we are creating inside that only, right? So, no. Even the same thing here, 10th student is a class. If I wanted to create variables, I can create variables here within this. You can create variables within this. But a little syntax difference. That is what now, 10th student, I wanted to create a variable English marks. We'll say this dot English marks equal to I am measuring some default value. English science. Sure. I am creating those variables inside the constructor, but you have to use a keyword called this. Little syntax difference you have to use. That is the old way, right? Earlier, if you wanted to pay, now imagine some 50 years back, if you wanted to pay the electricity bill, what you have to do? You have to go. You have to go. But now new ways has been created. This is the old way. Got my point? Because we are not using components, we are using classes. No? You have to type all the default code means what? There might be some extension for creating classes also might be there, but I want you to learn in detail. We can search for that. Now you just say for class component also it is there. It is there. I can create a functional component using extension. I can create class component also. For classes also there might be something. But first of all, I don't recommend you to use those extensions. Why? I want you to learn. Then why I have introduced those things then? Because components are easy now, but then it was a bit difficult for you. So I want you to be easy at the entry level. That's why I have shown you RFC in the day one. Like once we enter into React environment, if I explain these concepts, it's a bit difficult for you. That's why what I said. You just type RFC. I have told you what is component. I haven't covered what is class component, what is functional component, difference between those things. I haven't covered all these things then because I don't want you to make it heavy then. Now I am covering now because you are working on this from almost 2 months. So now you are a bit smart now, so you can understand. I am comparing with the components. I can directly explain without comparing with components also. But why I am explaining with components? Because you have worked on components, you have created components, modified, so many things you have done it. So you can understand. So classes and components both are similar or not? Lots of ways. Who copied who? Components copied classes. You are saying something, Dheeraj? Two different things actually. See, you cannot use JSXML in classes. In components, you can use JSXML. Improved version, right? See, for old TVs, You cannot install apps, but new TVs you can install. That's the in components. You can use remote. You can use install apps. You can use your mobile as a remote. You cannot do. That's the okay. Understood? Now I wanted to assign. Now I have assigned default values. I wanted to assign values to this. I can do like this. Now I'll say Sachin dot English marks. Or I would say is equal to 90. Dot equal to 91. Dot equal to 90. Times marks 23. Dot no one will get 94, 95 in social. That is for sure. That's why I have given this. Understanding what we are doing. So we can create a component like the way we can create a class. You can create variables inside component. You can create variables inside class. You can create functions inside component. Yes or no? Now I am coming to a component person. I am coming to the component. Inside this component, I can create a function. Let details the log details. You can create a function. Classes also you can create a function, but not inside the constructor, outside the constructor. You have to create. Now I'll say let details not like details log function. Little differences are there, in class. In class, if I wanted to create a component function within that same constructor I have created, but here outside the constructor I have created. First difference. And the second difference is if I wanted to create a variable here, I can directly use let age is equal to 20 lakh. But if I wanted to create a variable here, I have to use within the constructor this dot. Little differences are there. Understanding what I'm saying? Complicated classes. Now I wanted to display 100 people's details of 10 students. How many components I have to create? One will be using it 100 times. Here also the same thing. Now I wanted to calculate the details of 100 students, 10 students. How many classes we have to create? One, and we'll be using it. Understanding now what I can do inside this, I can now this is details inside details function. Now I can create another function calculate result is equal to I am creating a function what I'll do, I wanted to create pass marks. So here I'll say this dot pass marks is equal to that I updated it. That's it here. If English marks greater than or equal to this dot dot then I'll say here student else student have created this and whenever I want I can call this. How do I call it? Here I'll say Sachin dot result. I'll call it. Come here and see, refresh it. Inside 10th student, construct a student, passed in 10th because all the marks we have assigned is above 30. Now let us see, I'll make 14. Okay. Where have we have just created no here. It's the function we have created just now. Got it? Now it is saying passed or failed only, but who is passed, who is failed, it is not saying. So you can do that also. Now what I can do, I can create one more variable here. This dot student name empty default value empty. I'm giving it. Then here the displaying instead of students, I use backtick here. Let's say this dot student name. I created the variable student name. While creating a copy, I wanted to assign the Sachin dot student name is the name of the variable. I'll give Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar. Come here and see the refresh it. Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar failed in, like the way we are calculating pass or fail, we are passing the name. Can I say classes and components has lots of similarities? Yes or no? Actually, classes are first generation, class components are second generation, functional components are third generation. Understanding? Now, what you are good at is third generation. First, landline phones are first generation. Phones are second generation. Smartphones are third generation. You are using third generation. Exactly the same. But as a programmer, you should know from start. Understanding what I mean? This is like landline phones. Landline phones can receive calls and make calls. Can receive calls, can make calls. Smartphones can receive calls, can make calls. Smartphone gains this ability from feature phone. Feature phone gains this ability from landline phone. Yes. That we'll be discussing in our next session. Now, these smartphones supports apps. You can install app, uninstall app, but landline phone can we do that? Exactly the same thing here. Components can support JSXML, but classes doesn't support. Understanding what I'm saying? Clear? Any questions on this? How many classes I can create? How many copies per class I can create? N number, any number I can create. Now what I will do? Now I have created for Ganguly. For Ganguly also I will say 10th student. Now Ganguly dot English marks. Yeah, covered written now. Functions with output. Yeah, covered right. Okay. I think we have got functions with output. Regular expressions. You can return some value. See, okay. Now this is a app is a component. That means nothing but a function. Whenever you call this function, this is returning some JSXM, which will be displayed. I think if I am not wrong, we have worked on functions with return type and this regular expressions. All these things we have covered. Probably you missed it. So Ganguly.English marks I am giving 90. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Question. Yeah. Now all are 90. Now let's say pass or fail. Run it. Run it. Let's say pass or fail. I'm refreshing it. Yeah. Pass marks. Okay. Now Ganguly is a copy of 10th student class. That means whatever is there in the 10th student, it will have in this also. Now 10th student we have given pass marks. No? Here also it will be there. Then why it is not displaying pass or fail for Ganguly? We have to call the function. No? Constructor is a function. Will be called automatically. Then now you create a copy of it. But the calculate result is not a constructor. You have to call it. So I'm coming here. Let's say Ganguly calculate. It is saying passed in 10th. But why it is showing empty here? Not showing the name? Because we haven't given the name now. So Ganguly dot student name. Saurabh. Ganguly. Understood? Understood the concept? So to give you another understanding, better understanding, now imagine I have created this class. This has around 4 variables, 5 functions, for example. Now I am creating a copy of this. I am creating a copy of this. Now I have created one class, and I'll give a name to this class, for example, 10th student. Whenever I create a new copy, this new copy also will have 4 variables, 5 functions. We have given the name Sachin Tendulkar or Sachin. And I have created another copy of the same thing. This copy also will have 4 variables, 5 functions, because it has 4 variables, 5 functions. For this copy, we have given the name Saurabh. Understanding? These 4 variables, actually we have created how many variables? 6 subjects, 1 name. Total 7 variables we have created here. 7 variables we have created. So here also 7 will be there. Here also 7 will be there. How many functions we have created? 1 constructor and 1 calculate result, 1 detail. Total 3 functions we have created. So here 3 functions we have created. Here also 3 will be there. 3 will be there. Now, for example, if I add one more variable in this class, this copy also will get. Whatever is there in the copy, whatever is there in the class will come to copies. Now I have created one class. How many copies I can create? A number of copies I can create. Now I am assigning marks to the variables of this copy. I have assigned 14 or 15. Here we have out of these functions, one is calculate result. So what we are doing, we are calling this calculate result function. The calculate result is comparing the values of these variables with the pass marks and saying pass or fail. And even this function also has calculate result, because it has calculate result here, right? The same thing is coming here. Whenever I call calculate result here, this function is comparing the values of these marks and saying pass or fail. That is how actually it is happening. Even components also happening the same way. We are creating one component and using it multiple times. Right? Understanding the concept of classes. Now, there is a function which will be called automatically whenever we create a copy of a class. Which function is that? The function will call automatically whenever we create a copy of a class. What is that called? Constructor. Okay. Constructor. Constructor is a function. When will it be called? Whenever we create a copy of it. If I create 1000 copies, constructor will be called 1000 times. Got my point? Clear? Any confusions? Now, if I want, I can make it a bit better also. I can make it a bit better also. Now, what I have done, I have created almost 6, 7 variables here. 7 or 8 variables I have created. Now, let us come to inter-student. Now, what I will do, I will create variables, but I will do smart work. Constructor is a function, right? We can make function with parameters also. So what I will do when it now let it be like this, I will come to inter-student. In inter-student, I will be creating variables, uh, English marks, Telugu marks, Hindi marks, then also we'll have English will be there or no? Then Sanskrit, Sanskrit, okay. And maths marks, then English marks, English, Sanskrit, maths, A marks, B marks, then physics marks, chemistry. I have created how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 subjects. Have created Sanskrit marks. To maintain the same pattern. Now, while calling, now observe here, inside the inter-student constructor, let's say console log English marks. I'll just print English marks. What happens? I'm coming to app.js. I'm importing inter-student. Dhoni equal to the new. I have to use new inter-student. I can pass all the marks as a parameter. So I'll give 7. I'll just give 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 7. Now observe here, automatically I will get refresh. Are you able to see 10 parameter? So now parameters we have already discussed that cannot be accessible outside. Within that only, local variable. Now I want this to be accessible outside also. So what I will do, I'll get one more variable. This dot English marks is equal to ENG marks. This is the local variable, cannot access in another function like calculate result. But now I am going to store this into this variable. This is accessible outside the function also. Likewise, I am going to do it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. English, Telugu, same name only I am giving. English. If you use this, that means can be accessible throughout anywhere in the class. If you don't use this, that means that is local variable within that. Then, okay, not Telugu, then Sanskrit marks. Then maths A marks. Maths B marks. Physics marks. Chemistry. So I can create a class like this. While creating a copy, I am not passing any parameters. Or I can create a class like this. I am passing the. And in InterStudent also, if I want, I can create calculate result and say pass or fail, which is simple. This approach or this approach. Passing variables as parameters is a simple bit effective actually, but it's up to you. Whichever both ways can be done. Whatever is your recommendation. The same thing we do through props in the components. It's the same thing only with a bit polished way. That's it. Through props we pass, and we'll in parameters we'll say props and we'll access it. Component perspective we call it as props. Class perspective we call it as parameters. Got my point? Complicated? To practice it, if you create around 5 to 6 classes, you'll be understanding the differences. No doubt we use components only more. That is new generation. But this also we should do. The root, the depth. Understanding? Right now we are creating classes. But in future we are going to create at the same time, we are going to use inbuilt classes also. JavaScript has certain inbuilt classes which we will be using. Understanding? See, if you purchase a car, you can add extra features to it. But inbuilt also few will come. Sir, no. For example, if you purchase a car, audio system is not there. You can add the audio system. But speakers will come automatically. Understanding what I am saying? Some inbuilt will come. Either we can create our own or we can use the inbuilt or both can be done. Right now we are creating our own classes. Understanding? It is like, so we have already worked on components, that is version 3. We are working on classes, that is version 1. You'll find a bit difficult because this is old version than components. Actually, React team has taken these components and they have modified it according to their requirements and named it as class components. Class components has certain issues. Again, they have improvised it and called it as functional components, which we are using. You might have heard about a director called Shankar, Robo movie. Now, once Shankar accepts an actor, his look will be totally different in that movie. He improvises the actor actually, the look of the actor basically. It's like that. Understanding what I'm saying? This React, what they have done, they have taken these classes and improvised it, released version 2, again improvised it, released version 3. If you joined around 4 years back here, you could have learned version 2 of components, this class components. Because you joined after version 3 of components, you have learned version 3 of components, which is functional. Version 1 is classes. Good version of that is class component. Good version of that is functional component. Functional components. Why I have covered functional components? Very easy. Create a new JavaScript file, RFC, done. You feel this is difficult because this is not simplified version. Components are simplified version. Now you just ask your parents. Now, for example, Your parents say electricity bill to you. 3 days he said, 3 days you didn't pay. Then now in 4 days, your parent definitely will tell you electricity payment bill is just 1 minute work for you, but it is 1 hour work for you. Have to first of all we have to collect the bill. Where is it? Then see the due date. Then go to the electricity office, stand in queue, and pay the bill. From those days to Phone Pay or Google Pay. It will show you, no need to remember us. It will automatically show you a notification. Electricity bill is pending this much. You just click the button. Will take to that page. Button will ask you UPI pin. Tuck. Done. If you are little smart, you can set auto pay also. But we don't do that. Why? The amount will not be there in our accounts. Automatically it will be debited. Got my point? Understood what is classes? Like component creation, we can create a class. And like component, the function will be called automatically. In class also, a function will be called automatically. Whenever you create a copy, we call it as constructor. And inside the component, we'll create inside the component function will be there. Inside the function, we create variables. Here also, we create variables. The extra step is this: you have to use it. This dot, you can access it anywhere. Understanding what I'm saying? And a function accepts parameter. Even you can create a constructor which accepts as a parameter. Now, this is a constructor. As I said, this is a constructor which is accepting parameters. This 10th student is also a constructor which is not accepting any parameters. Which is not accepting parameters. If you wanted to assign the values, you have to assign like this. You have to assign like this. If it is constructor, you have to assign like this, single line basically. And in class, you can create any number of functions. In component also, you can create any number of. Understanding, because these components are improved version of classes. We use the components more. Doesn't mean we should not use this. We'll be working on this also. Any interview, good programmer or bad programmer, they will judge based on your object-oriented programming. Based on your object-oriented programming. See, you wanted to become, an army officer, for example. They will check your physical capacities, no doubt about it. But they will check your fear factor also. The difference between army and a normal human, I'm giving an example. Army men and you both are having a cup of tea and discussing something. Very near to you, a bomb blast happened. What do? You will run away. See, you run opposite direction. But army men runs towards that bomb to save people. You should have guts for that. Same people, you might be born in the same, like maybe brothers also. There is a difference, exactly. Any interviewer wanted to know whether you are a good programmer or bad programmer, they check your object-oriented programming skills. Now they will ask you what is classes. What is classes? Class is called a blueprint. Class is called blueprint, and copies of that are called as objects. Class is called blueprint, and the copies of that blueprint is called objects. Why it is called object-oriented programming? We are creating classes and we are using objects of that classes. Understanding? And the class can hold variables, right? If you have a variable inside the class, we call it as property. What? If you have a function inside the class, we call it as method. Class is a container with properties and methods. Technical terms. So class can hold properties, variables and functions. We call it as properties and methods. We can say class is a blueprint. Once you create it, and you can create copies of it. In the blueprint, the same will be available in all copies. Yes, sir. The Apple company has created an iPhone with Apple logo behind that. If you purchase iPhone, you will see Apple logo or banana logo. Why Apple logo? They have created that Apple logo in the blueprint. It comes to us. Got a point. And they have created a iPhone in such a way that certain things can be changed, certain things cannot be changed. That means what? You cannot change the Apple logo to banana logo, but you can change the wallpaper of your smartphone. From outside, that's different thing. From outside, of course, you can change this value also. Even though I have assigned default values, you can change this also. That's different. Overall understanding the concept. Right. So class is nothing but a blueprint which can hold properties and methods, and you can create copies of it. How many copies? Any number of. The same thing, improvised it and named it as a class component, then improvised it, named it as. Okay. Now what I want you to do, I want you to create a few classes. What are those classes? I'm not asking components, I'm asking classes. And even if our application will be plain white screen, no problem. Display the messages in the console. Display the messages in the console. So what I want you to do, I want you to create a class called cycle. I want you to create a class called motorcycle. I want you to create a class called car. I want you to create a class called lion, tiger, cheetah. Like this, I want you to create a few classes. Cycle, motorcycle, car, lion, tiger, cheetah. 6 classes. Can we create that? Now each class should accept should have some variables like number of, if it is cycle, number of wheels, lion, number of legs. If it is cycle, number of headlights. If it is lion, number of eyes. Or number of tails, number of nose, ear, number of gears, number of steerings. Those kind of things you can create it, and you can create if it is cycle, vehicle speed 20 kilometers per hour, motorcycle 100 kilometers per hour, car 120 kilometers per hour, lion probably 80 kilometers per hour, cheetah 120-130 kilometers per hour. Understanding? Like that, you can create a few properties, few methods in app.js. You import it and use it, and call the properties and methods and use it. That I wanted. Understood? Now you start looking into some documentation in internet. What is classes? You will be understanding. I am not using terminologies much. Of course, I am using little terminologies like properties, methods, constructor, like that. But I always try to avoid the terminologies, technical terminologies. Why? I want you to be understandable easily. That's why I'm not using heavy terminology. But in interviews, you should be able to answer. Once you understood the concept, you can express it in your own way. Thought about any other questions? Understood? Everywhere it happens like this only. Now we said components are inspired from class components. Class components are inspired from classes. Classes are inspired from, printing press. Imagine, I'm giving an example. Okay, Ranbir Kapoor and Alia Bhatt wanted to get married. Both parents agreed. What's next? Inspired from printing presses. That means create a blueprint, then create copies of it. Then class components are inspired or improvised from classes. Functional components are improvised or inspired from classes. First printing press. Based on taking this blueprint and creating copy inspiration, they have created a classes concept. Improvised that class component and improvised that functional. Understanding what I'm saying? I want you to. I'm expecting the 6 classes tomorrow. 6. If you wanted to create extra anything, you can create it. Again, I'm telling you, they will check your object-oriented programming skills. They wanted to check your programming skills. Whether if you are a good programmer means you are strong at object-oriented programming. If you are a bad programmer means you are weak at object-oriented programming. Earlier, very few languages are supporting object-oriented programming. Now every programming language is supporting object-oriented. So if you know that every programming language also, it is easy to understand. Okay. Components, then functional components. But we have worked on the reverse way. Why? I want you to understand it easily. If I cover all these things, then probably I have to start JavaScript at the starting only. Start JavaScript at the starting, bit difficult to handle it. See, starting JavaScript is different. When we have started the JavaScript, once you started working on forms, requirement came naturally. You are entering English marks. 900, if you enter it, it is not saying invalid. So natural requirement came. We wanted to control it. JavaScript requirement came. Got my point? Yeah, follow. Concepts are there in C++, not in C. They'll tell you to learn C++ because they want you to learn procedural-oriented programming, then object-oriented programming. Why they say learn C++? Those are the first programming language which supports object-oriented programming. Got a point? That's why they told you, they used to tell them learn C++. Now, not required. Earlier, probably you may not know it. Earlier, if you wanted to learn computer, learn typewriting first. Was there long back. But now who is learning typewriting? Those days are gone. Here also. Now every programming language is supporting object-oriented programming. So no need to go there, learn and come back. Okay.